A few weeks ago, Cursor released their CLI beta, and my first thought was,
"You're joking. Not another one?"
And that was the angle I was going to take for this video. But then I actually used it and had a really good experience. I was so surprised I had to redo my entire video with a brand new mindset. For context, I'm a daily Claude Code and Cursor IDE user, so I didn't really see a reason to switch. But I think I found a few reasons why you might want to. I mean, it makes sense why they're trying this at least. We polled our audience on what AI tools they use, and while Cursor won the IDE battle, Claude Code still ranks impressively higher. So let me take you through my experience and the reasons why a Cursor CLI actually makes sense. I'll start with a quick fire of a few of the features of the Cursor CLI, as to be honest, you're probably familiar with how most of these work from other CLI tools. First though, what is nice is when you set it up, it uses the same MCP servers as the IDE, so it does keep it a consistent experience if you're using both. Then we also have commands here, so we can choose our model. It'll be the same ones as in Cursor. You have auto run here, which is essentially their YOLO mode to auto allow tool calls, file creation commands, and things like that. There's clear to start a new chat, compress to summarize the chat history like in Claude Code, Vim if you want to toggle Vim keybinds because you're that type of person. The /shell command lets you enter in a really quick non-interactive command. You actually do the same with exclamation mark, so for example git status. Then after that it's pretty much just the normal things you would expect, like listing out the chats that you've had and being able to resume them as well. As I said, nothing too surprising in there that you probably haven't seen in another CLI tool. It also has the headless mode if you want to run this in a script, like maybe you create one for reviewing code, and you can run that in GitHub Actions as well, similar to how you can in Claude Code. So where is the magic then? Well, that lies in the Cursor agent itself. Now, obviously, this is the same one in the Cursor IDE and their other integrations, but to be honest with you, I think I've been sleeping on this one a little bit, as I've largely switched to using Claude Code. To explain my surprise, this is what I was doing in an earlier version of the video, where the results were so good that I ended up scrapping that version. I was doing a head-to-head here with Cursor Agent as well as Claude Code, where I have the same Next.js boilerplate project from Better T-Stack, and I've opened it up in both of them, and I'm using Claude Sonnet 4 for the model as well in both cases. The first prompt that I gave it was a very vague prompt that says, don't write any code, plan out the UI for a travel booking app. In Cursor Agent, we get the usual to-do steps that you're pretty used to in most of these tools. It is a very nice feature though, as you can really quickly see if it's going in the wrong direction and steer it in the right one. In fact, both of these tools do also have the ability to send prompts as it's generating to steer it in the right direction. But the place that I started to get surprised at was in the plan itself. It was actually incredibly detailed. Now, I won't go over all of the details here. You can see once it starts ticking off the to-dos of exploring the current project structure, then it gave us our plan. It also has some nice syntax highlighting here for these headers, so they must be doing that with some markdown formatting. We can see as we scroll down here that this is the travel booking app UI plan, then it goes into the user flows and customer journey, the information architecture and navigation, the secondary navigation, the key screens and layouts, and it actually created the wireframes here within the terminal. I must admit I haven't personally seen this in any other tool, but do let me know in the comments down below if you have and from which tool. As I keep scrolling though, you can see there are a few more wireframes for pretty much every page that it was trying to plan out, and overall the plan is just incredibly comprehensive. We have things like our design token in here, the responsive design strategy, accessibility and usability, the advanced features and future enhancements, the implementation roadmap, and then it all ends up with the ready for development stage. But before I tell it to implement the plan, I've switched over to Claude Code and I sent it the exact same prompt. You can see it does the same to-do feature. Then we have our travel booking app UI plan. Then it did that step, moved on to the home search screen. Then it has the search results and filtering, the booking flow scenes, the user accounts and trip management, and that was the entire plan. What I just scrolled through there in those 5 seconds was all that Claude Code gave me. The plan is just kind of meh. That is all there is. Now, I know I'm using a vague prompt, but in this case and a few more tests I did, I preferred the Cursor agent plan. It just seems that they have a few more instructions somewhere in the pipeline that give it a better output. The good plan also really helps it out in the next step, which is implementing. The prompt I used for this was now code the landing page, and you can see here in Cursor Agent, it goes off and does the normal to-do steps, goes through my files and directories to understand what my current structure is, then we actually get the generated code. So it created a new component here for the search widget, 153 new lines, and it shows us it wrote this to a new file. We get a nice truncated code view, and it just does that for a few more components. We also get the diff view if it edits a file, and then right at the end here, we can see that it's going to list out all of the files that it created or edited. If we do want to actually dig in and see some of these truncated code blocks, all we need to do is do Control R. That opens up the review mode, and we can scroll down the entire files that it generated. You can see this one with the new one and the search widget. Use the arrow keys to go along and see the individual files. And one really nice feature about this review mode is if I press I here, I can send a follow-up prompt where it now knows that I'm tagging the layout.tsx that I'm currently looking at. Just a nice to have, as it means that I don't have to X out of this, remember what file I was looking at and why, and then use @ and try and tag the file. If I exit out of the review mode though, the one place that Cursor Agent did get caught up on was running this command. I had to go ahead and stop this manually. I think it's because it was running npm run dev, but it was expecting to run a command that would then terminate. Obviously the dev server doesn't close itself, so it was seemingly just waiting for it to close, but that was never going to happen. So it would be nice to see them add in a background shell mode where it can run that command and see the output, but then also carry on with the generation. That is something that Claude Code does have. So in just 2 prompts there, hopefully I have a nice landing page. Overall, the code looked pretty good. It was using different files for the components, and everything looked nice and organized. But what about Claude Code? Because remember, they are using the same model. Well, giving Claude Code the exact same prompt of now code the landing page, but remember the plan will be a little bit different. We can see it goes through the normal to-do steps, and then the only code it generated was changing this page.tsx. You can see it removed what I had in there already, and then it just creates everything inside of this single file, which really annoys me because it knows this should be a separate component. It literally has a comment here calling this the header, this one calling it the hero section. Why doesn't it just move those to a new file? This is actually something that I commonly have in my rules for LLMs to try and stop them from writing React code like this, but I didn't have it in either of these scenarios, and the Cursor agent just knew to do it. So for the implementation, Cursor CLI was also a better experience, and I do really like the UI of Cursor Agent. I know that probably shouldn't be a deciding factor, but of all of the CLIs I've used, I'd say it's second to OpenCode when it comes to UI. Talking of the UIs though, my biggest surprise came when I actually tried to run the code they generated. I'll start with what Cursor Agent output, and I think it's actually really awesome. You can see up here it used our header and managed to modify it. I had the theme switcher in the boilerplate. We can see this actually works. When I change it to light mode, everything does change with it, and it seems like there's no text that we can't read. And in dark mode here, I think this component looks really nice. This is a pretty good landing page from an LLM. Then we have the what are you looking for section, featured destinations, we've got hot deals down here, then why you should choose travel book, and then finally never miss a deal. I think this is the only text on the page that I can see where it's pretty unreadable. But I'd say that is a very good result. Probably one of the best that I've got from 2 prompts out of any LLM. My usual experience is something like this. This is what Claude Code output. Now one of the main things that's really annoying is you can see it had the header component in my boilerplate. It just decided not to modify that and it would just create a new one underneath. This also means that it didn't do anything with the design system here in terms of light or dark mode. I am currently in dark mode. I know you probably can't tell. If I switch to light mode, a few things do become a little bit more readable, but it just failed absolutely on using the design system there. Then this component here just doesn't look as good as the Cursor Agent one in my opinion. Then we have the popular destination section and then special offers. That is literally it. That is all Claude Code generated. That head-to-head then is one of the reasons why you might want to use the Cursor CLI. It just seems that the Cursor agent is doing something that made it a better planner and implementer, even though it was using the same model. The second reason actually follows on from that. If you already like the Cursor agents, this now opens them up to every language. So say you're a Java or iOS dev, the experience of coding those in a VS Code fork isn't that great. So now you get the benefit of the Cursor agent everywhere you want it, even in a headless mode as well. And the third reason is it also helps with consistency. With this, you can expect that your CLI is going to work the same way as your IDE. The way you prompt, the way it plans, everything should feel a little more familiar. And the final reason that I don't think many people think about is if you're forced to. I'm actually not joking. Some companies might only be paying for Cursor, and they don't want to add on another tool, or it's an absolute headache to get them to. This way, you can use the CLI with the same Cursor accounts you already have. I mean, it's a pretty good experience. This is also great as well if you don't want to pay for 2 subscriptions. Maybe you can only afford Cursor. This way, you get a CLI that you can use anywhere that you want. So there we go. That is the Cursor CLI. What do you think about this? Would you give it a go? Have you already? Let me know in the comments down below. While you're there, subscribe, and as always, see you in the next one.